Voters in the former Soviet Republic of Moldova are heading to the polls amid allegations of Russian meddling. Moldova's relations with Moscow are a major issue in Sunday's presidential runoff. The incumbent pro-European President Maia Sandu has distanced the country from Russia during its invasion of Ukraine. She's up against the country's former prosecutor-general, Alexandr Stoianoglo, who is promising closer economic ties with Russia. Moscow denies accusations made by the EU and others that it is trying to undermine the election. For more on that, let's bring in Maria Gerth Niculescu, a journalist in Moldova's capital. Thank you for joining us. Maria, Russia denies its involvement in this election, but what exactly are the allegations here?
Well, there are multiple allegations, but what prosecutors, police, and investigative journalists have found out so far is that a wide-scale electoral corruption scheme orchestrated by Moldovan oligarch Ilan Shor, who is based in Russia. That's over 38 million euros channeled through Russian banks towards Moldova, with up to 300,000 votes being bought ahead of the referendum and ahead of the first round of presidential elections, according to Moldovan authorities. Russia and Ilan Shor denied any illegal wrongdoing, but even ahead of this second round of presidential elections, there are reasons to think that the interference is ongoing. For instance, we have Russian buses that have allegedly crossed into Moldova, transporting voters for free so that they can vote in this election. There's also been widespread disinformation campaigns aimed at scaring voters and destabilizing the country, while the final numbers of the electoral corruption scheme are unclear. The fact that citizens have been paid to campaign and vote against Maia Sandu is widely documented, something that the president has called an attack on the country.
And what is at stake here for Moldova in terms of the outcome of the elections?
Well, the stakes are quite high, especially on the geopolitical level. Even though the referendum on Moldova's EU accession has passed by a very thin margin 2 weeks ago, and actually negotiations to join the EU have already started with Brussels, well, the future president will play a role in confirming Moldova's geopolitical role in the region. Maia Sandu has made EU integration the main topic of her mandate. She's been also very vocal against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Alexandr Stoianoglo, on the other hand, describes himself as a neutral candidate wanting good relations with Europe, but also with Russia. He's boycotted the referendum and is being backed by the Socialist Party, which is a traditionally pro-Russian party. So there are a lot of people abroad closely monitoring this election, as it might determine if the country will continue its move westward or whether it will resume its relations with Moscow.
Now, with these voting abnormalities, 2 weeks ago, Sandu won 42% of the votes. How likely is it for her to now secure the 50% she needs?
Well, this second round of presidential election is likely to be an extremely tight race, just as the EU referendum 2 weeks ago. Current President Maia Sandu did reach a comfortable majority in the first round, but many of the 9 candidates who didn't make it to the second round are very opposed to the current government and therefore called to vote against Maia Sandu. In the first round, there were approximately 250,000 votes difference between Sandu and Stoianoglo, but also many people also chose other candidates. There are 200,000 people who voted for candidates who are seen as pro-Russian and therefore very hostile to Maia Sandu. Another 200,000 voted for Renato Usati. He arrived third in the first round, and he's decided to not back either Sandu or Stoianoglo. Alexandr Stoianoglo has tried to convince undecided voters, those who are disappointed by the economic situation in the country or by the slow fight against corruption. Maia Sandu, on the other hand, hopes that the diaspora will be as mobilized as it was 2 weeks ago, because this is the vote that managed to tip the balance in favor of the EU referendum.
Journalist Maria Gerth Niculescu in Chisinau, thank you so much for joining us.